JRPGs have been around for decades, providing endless hours of magic, equipment, heroic deeds, villains, and worlds to save. I've been playing JRPGs since near the beginning, and I've never tired of immersing myself into the fantasy worlds of experience, loot, combat, and storytelling. But in this video, I'll be counting down my top 10 masterclasses, RPGs that you simply must play. 10 out of 10 from me. Now let's start off with the spoiler alert. I have slightly more than 10 games on this list. I hope you'll forgive me for that. But one more thing. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see the best RPG content on YouTube as soon as it goes up. Also, do me another favor. List your favorite JRPGs in the comment section. Let's start off with a classic from Nintendo and Monolith Soft. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. In this game, you discover the origins of my main man, Shulk, as he and his companions clash against a seemingly, keyword on that, unstoppable mechanical menace. Wield a future-seeing blade, the Monado, chain together attacks, and carefully position your party members in strategic real-time combat as you journey across a massive world. Now, during an attack from these mechanical invaders known as Mechon, Shulk discovers that he can tap into the full power of a mysterious blade known as the Monado. With the mighty Monado in hand, Shulk sets out to defeat the Mechon once and for all. That setup that I just talked about is one of the main reasons why Xenoblade to me is a 10 out of 10 experience. It's not just the individual game Xenoblade, and yes, you kind of have to talk and really experience all the games, but this was the beginning. This game had such good scripting, such good set pieces, a completely innovative and revolutionary combat system for the time. It really combined many different things that you saw from an MMO, from standard action games, even from turn-based games, and put it all together. And that's part of what makes a 10 out of 10 RPG for me. Does it hit every single point when it comes to story, when it comes to combat, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to graphics or fidelity or look on the system it's originally released on? And that's what Xenoblade Chronicles does. And the Definitive Edition just takes all of that and kind of puts it together in an even nicer package. To me, it's a 10 out of 10 style of RPG, or even if you're going with the original Xenoblade Chronicles game for what it did. Let's move to the next game here. And I have a double pack of goodness for you guys. Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy IX. These are pivotal games in the PlayStation 1 era, and the PS1 itself is a pivotal system in bringing Japanese RPGs to a larger audience, even bigger than what Nintendo was able to accomplish with the NES and the Super Nintendo, and even some of their portables at the time like the Game Boy. The PS1, with its CD quality music and data storage, was able to create these massive set pieces of CGI and really immersed you more into those worlds at the time. Now, obviously it's very different now, but at the time, you couldn't help but marvel at what they were doing and the quality of it. Now, with Final Fantasy VII, obviously Midgar, city controlled by the mega conglomerate Shinra, the #1 mega reactor being blown up by the rebel group Avalanche. And Avalanche was secretly formed to wage a rebellion against Shinra, an organization which is absorbing Mako energy, destroying the natural resources of the planet. My dude, Cloud, a former member of Shinra's elite combat force, Soldier, was involved in the bombing of the Mako reactor. Can Cloud and Avalanche protect the planet from the huge, formidable enemy Shinra? Now, I know a lot of you guys have probably played Final Fantasy VII in some way, shape, or form, or even Final Fantasy VII Remake, which remixes the original story. But to me, back when this game came out in '97, in the late 90s or so, it was so revolutionary. The combat, the ATB system, what they did with the music, all of it formed one of the best RPGs, 10 out of 10 for me at the time that I played it. Final Fantasy IX took everything that they learned from Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, and put it into essentially the swan song for Final Fantasy games on the PS1. And it did it all better. The combat, the story, the writing, a lot of different things. Final Fantasy IX really just one-ups and beats it out. So I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't experienced it yet, but I highly recommend both of these RPGs as 10 out of 10 experiences, especially for when they came out and what they did culturally for JRPGs. Next up is Dragon Quest VIII. This is a game that I played originally on the PlayStation 2 and I played it on the Nintendo 3DS. And what was interesting about this game is that it was actually the first title in this series to be presented in full 3D. It has a beautiful world. I was blown away when I first played this game on my PlayStation 2. You go on this really crazy adventure with Yangus, a bandit with a heart of gold, Jessica, my girl Jessica here, the highborn magical minx, and Angelo, Knight of Lothario, by your side. What makes Dragon Quest really cool to me was this cool Super Saiyan, tension system. Sorry guys, slipped there. It gives you extra attack power and you can go into this mode called super high tension. Now you have all the cool stuff that makes an RPG great. You have skill points when leveling that can be assigned to various different skills in order to learn new abilities and techniques, magic, and you can customize your character right down to your liking. Now you also have monster teams, which I'm always a huge fan of RPGs that do the monster teams. You have tournaments for that, but they can also aid you in battle at times. And it has a good old-fashioned alchemy pot for item creation. You gotta have the alchemy pot. It's a staple. And to me, Dragon Quest VIII really put together every element of what I loved about the old school RPGs, added in some new elements, and was polished to the T. Dragon Quest VIII might not be the most innovative when it comes to other games at the time or the features, but the sum of all of its parts just create a superior experience on the PlayStation 2 and easily a 10 out of 10 from me. Next up is a game that I think a lot of you guys probably weren't expecting from me, but anybody who's watched my content knows that I'm a massive fan of this game, and I think that it's one of the most criminally underrated games, and that is Lost Odyssey from the Xbox 360 era, and of course you can play it on Xbox One or Xbox Series. Now this game is interesting. A meteor wipes out the majority of forces from the nations of Uda and Kent. Kane joins Seth and Jansen to investigate the Grand Staff at the behest of the Council of Uda. At the staff, the three are captured by hostile scouts who take them to Numara, where they meet with the Queen Ming, another immortal who has lost her memory. The Queen allows the group to go free in Numura, where Kane meets Cook and Mac, his grandchildren, who join the group after the death of their mother. And that is the setup and plot. But what makes Lost Odyssey one of the most memorable 10 out of 10 experiences for me was how they did the flashbacks. Kane is an immortal. He's lived for over 1,000 years. And throughout time, you will find certain flashbacks that he has of certain scenarios and situations that he's went through. Endless wars, bloodshed. There's times when he's been captured. He's been put into dark dungeons with no sunlight. Stories that you can truly take, really good stories, and apply them to just anything in terms of patience, ability, finding yourself. There are so many different experiences and learning lessons in them. I think if you combine that emotional touch with the great story the game already has, even if you skip those, you look at the ring system, the combat, the graphics at the time for the Xbox 360, and even still now to this point are incredible. Lost Odyssey is an experience that honestly you have to just have. You need to play it. And I think that a lot of people have not played this because it's on a Xbox platform, a platform that's not known for Japanese RPGs. But this by far is the best Japanese RPG that Microsoft has ever been a part of, in my opinion at least. This is a first party game from them, from Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy. It had an all-star cast at Mistwalker, and this game honestly is a 10 out of 10 for me. It checks all of the boxes. The music is incredible. The gameplay is really fun. There's a lot of different skills to learn and magic and experience and locations. It has the length. It has the crazy boss battles in the game. Everything out of this game screams 10 out of 10 for me, and I think that it was incredibly misunderstood when it first launched, but it absolutely is one of the best of all time. Next up is a game that a lot of you guys probably already know, and that is Persona 5 Royal. And I know, I guess it's maybe easy to put this as a 10 out of 10 experience, but make no mistake, Persona 5 Royal is a 10 out of 10 modern JRPG experience. Now, you're forced in this game to transfer to a high school in Tokyo. The protagonist has a strange dream. You truly are a prisoner of fate. In the near future, ruin awaits you. With the goal of rehabilitation looming overhead, he must save others from distorted desires by donning the mask of the Phantom Thief. And what makes this game a 10 out of 10 experience to me is everything, how it packages it. You have the incredible slick animations, fonts, art style, combined with the incredible music that really just oozes personality and style into every single scene and what it does. The combat is so fun. The camera angles, the upgrades, the improvements over the base version, it really just shows the developers really went back into the drawing board and said, okay, we already have an incredible game that got many 10 out of 10 scores, but how can we make it truly even better? And I think that everything that they added to this made it that. They made Mementos way better when it comes to the underground area that you go and kind of fight and grind and do different things. They improved with the new protagonist that they brought in, the new student as well. Everything in this game, from the structure of the story to the set pieces to the combat to the personas to the fusion, it all just gels together and works unbelievable. SMT, or the Mega 10 system, has been around for decades, but I truly felt that this was the first time that they actually combined every single style of what they were looking for in order to create that perfect 10 out of 10 experience for me. Where are my Pokemon fans at? Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the Nintendo DS. This game, honestly, to me, was one of the peaks of the Pokemon games. It took everything that you loved when it comes to Pokemon, the original, when it comes to the original Gold and Silver, and it made it so much better and packed that tiny little cartridge. And to be sure here, we're talking about Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver, which is the remake of the original one from the Game Boy on the Nintendo DS, but they packed everything that was so incredible about the Pokemon experience. What makes a portable monster collecting and battling game incredible? And they put it onto that cartridge to create endless hours, literally thousands of hours of battling, collecting, breeding, trading. It was, to me, one of the peaks, one of the 3 peaks of the Pokemon video game franchise. In this game, it retells the story of a young boy or girl who grew up in the Johto region. Your aim to be the Pokemon master and take on Pokemon challenges until he can reach the Kanto region. Now, beginning from New Barktown, which is expertly named, the player will have to catch, raise, and battle a team of Pokemon in order to collect the region's 8 badges for a shot at the Pokemon League Finals. Along the way, numerous legendary Pokemon will make appearances. The player will be forced to deal with those pesky Team Rocket bums and their leader, who's not one, the powerful Giovanni, a quirky professor, and a hot-headed rival whose every move is aimed at taking the hero down in his journey to be the #1 Pokemon trainer. That setup and talking to you guys about exactly what the game is about is important, because it captures why these games have the nucleus or base of a 10 out of 10 game, but then it layers everything else on that. And that's what Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver does. Very simple premise, but everything surrounding it in terms of what they've done with the Pokemon, what they did with the graphics, what they did with the items and the play, the competitive play, the breeding, everything tweaked in this game just made sense. And to me, it was one of the super high peaks of the Pokemon franchise, and a 10 out of 10 from me. Next up is Final Fantasy VI, and yes, there's a lot of Final Fantasy on this list, but honestly, there's a reason why there's a lot of Final Fantasy on this list. But for me, Final Fantasy VI still sits at the top of the list when it comes to Final Fantasy games, and let me give you guys a number of reasons why. This story in this game, for a Super Nintendo title, it has one of the most unhinged main villains of all time. Honestly, it needs to be played to be believed. Just hearing about it or me talking about it does not really, I would say, tell you the whole story or tell you it. You've got to see what this guy does in order to get what he wants in this story. It's never been more satisfying to me to fell a boss or to fell a evil villain, the main boss, as it was for me in Final Fantasy VI, because this guy is crazy. That is what makes the plot, the story, everything surrounding it so good. That incredible main villain. And for the time, breathtaking visuals, music, and scale. There wasn't really much like this when it launched in the early 90s, and when you played Final Fantasy VI, it felt like you were going on this grand adventure that your Super Nintendo simply couldn't handle, but somehow, some way, they got it done. 14 different characters, which at the time we had games where you can pick a lot of different characters, whether it was like strategy RPGs, but for a turn-based RPG to have that many characters, ATB based, it was incredible. It really set the game apart with their unique actions and abilities and customization between strategically picking what character you wanted to use and when. And the writing hits, man, at a time when there was Japanese RPGs that sometimes the writing or more like the translations weren't great. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Final Fantasy VI was perfect because Square Enix was still learning at the time, but the writing really hit hard to me. It portrayed characters to have their own unique goals, feelings, personality. You truly felt that that art that was displayed with the game was how it really was, even though it doesn't look like that, but that's how it felt to you. The art, the music, the graphics, everything intertwined to create just an emotional experience and a gameplay experience that is hard to top in today's day. We're going on a swashbuckling experience with this next game, guys, and that's Skies of Arcadia, where Vice and his rough band of sky pirates go on this magical ship-faring, discovery-having, swashbuckling experience. Did I mention that? Yes, because Skies of Arcadia truly makes you feel like the Japanese RPG sky pirate with magical energy that you've always wanted to feel like. And honestly, I haven't felt like that in quite some time. Maybe Rogue Galaxy, but not really overall. And this is a turn-based RPG for the ages, and the Legends version, which that's the version that I mainly played. I did play it originally on the Dreamcast, but the Legends version is the one that I'm talking about here for a 10 out of 10 experience for me. And the reason why they did that is, one, it's enhanced, looks a bit better graphically, but nothing too crazy, but they lowered the encounter rate, and they have this brand new bounty system that is incredible, lets you track down some optional new boss fights, and there's new discoveries. It just creates a more cohesive experience that for a turn-based RPG in the early 2000s, and some of the things that it did with its magic systems and its combat and its sense of exploration, it created just a euphoria that was not available on the GameCube with standard RPGs. You would see Tales, and there was Phantasy Star, and there were games that had some of that scope, but Skies of Arcadia did it in a way that no other RPG could on the GameCube. And still to this day, decades later, there are calls for Skies of Arcadia to come back because unfortunately it has not been re-released in any way, shape, or form. The PS2 version was scrapped, and they haven't put out a remake or an HD version of it, and there's a reason why people want this game to come back. Between the writing, between the characters, between the gameplay, it just created a sense of scale that was just incredible for the time. That's the reason why Skies of Arcadia Legends is a 10 out of 10 RPG for me. We're getting into the top 3 here, guys, and sorry if I'm going to be a bit more, I would say, emotional with these, but this game in particular, Fire Emblem Awakening, had quite possibly the biggest revelation for my channel, for me individually at the time. Because at the time that I played it, I was going through a very difficult and tough time, and I don't want this to lend into why it's a 10 out of 10 RPG, but I can't help it because of how impactful and emotional and incredible the game was. Fire Emblem really helped me break past what I needed to do by showing courage, inspiring me to be brave no matter what the cost is, no matter how your children are, no matter what's going on, and take things on head on, courageously. So the story is set 2,000 years after the events of the original Fire Emblem and Fire Emblem Gaiden, and focuses on Chrom, the Prince of Yllis, and I probably said that wrong, and his personal army of shepherds. They rescue Robin, an avatar whose name, gender, and appearance can be customized by you, which is a nice little touch for a Fire Emblem game, which I don't think to that point had been done, but either way, it was the first time that I did it when it comes to Fire Emblem. And this character obviously has the typical amnesia, like always, when it comes to certain JRPGs, and takes on the role of the tactician, which is such an incredible role. I didn't realize it when I first played the game, but having a tactician truly understand and explain why this is a strategy RPG in the first place is really cool. And they've done it before in Fire Emblem games, but not to the degree of a avatar or player character, at least from what I played at the time. Now, over the course of the story, Chrom's army travels across Yllis and defends it from undead invaders called the Risen and attacks from the hostile nation of Plagia. This game features a really innovative and cool pairing system that I loved. The child system as well. The more you pair together units, they can grow affinity towards each other. They can be in a relationship and then end up having children, which come from the future in order to help you guys there in the present, which is just awesome. 42 separate classes, multiple swappable skills, so you can customize your characters. You have an incredible story, atmosphere, and music. And I can't say enough about the music. Still to this day, I use Fire Emblem Awakening music for my videos, and the music quality for it being on the Nintendo 3DS and how many tracks they had was awesome, which not a lot of other RPGs could even come close to when it comes to the quality and the amount of tracks. So for me, you combine the heart-gripping story of Chrom and Lucina and what happens between them with all of the cool innovations and mechanics that they added to what could have been the last Fire Emblem game if it didn't sell. It makes it a 10 out of 10 experience. It has all of the workings of something to where it combines the desperation of the team. It combines incredible storytelling, decades of experience putting together quality strategy RPGs, and putting that all into one RPG that has left a lasting impression on me for a 10 out of 10 experience. Once again, we're seeing the future, but this time it's redeemed with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed on the Nintendo Switch. And I think that in order for this experience to be a 10 out of 10, you can't just have one or the other. You kind of need to have everything. And that is the knowledge of the whole series, understanding the whole series, knowing the story of it, and going into it without being spoiled. Now, if all of those scenarios are put into place, which I know that's a lot, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Future Redeemed is a 10 out of 10 experience. It's honestly that good. It creates a euphoria story-wise over the course of decades, tying together multiple games, multiple trilogies into one experience, or two separate experiences, but one tag of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that I've never had in any other game, and games have simply not been able to do successfully. We've seen trilogies try it, and they've been good, but we haven't got to the point to where we are right now. And that's what Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Future Redeemed does. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, you have Noah, you have Mio, incredible characters, and two members of the opposing nations, Kevis and Agnes, on a heartfelt journey to end the cycle of violence. And this all plays into just the whole scope of Xenoblade and what they're able to do. A group of 6 characters from these nations join together to awaken the colonies of Ionios and expose the true threat both nations face, traverse massive, fantastical landscapes as you learn how this game connects to the larger Xenoblade Chronicles story, which I was talking about before. That is so important for it being a 10 out of 10 experience. Now let's talk a little bit about Future Redeemed, because this to me is the best plain Xenoblade Chronicles game, and it was the super cherry on top of the most delicious cake that I've ever ate in my life. Now, this is a brand new story. it's not a standalone, as in you have to have Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to access the game, just because of how intertwined these two games are, connecting all the games in the series. In this adventure, the new protagonist, Mr. Matthew, sets out with his ally A in search for his missing sister and survivors from the city of Swordmarch following its devastation at the hands of Mobius. Discover newly added systems like union combos, enabling two characters to team up, and affinity goals that power up your characters based on the experiences they have along their journey. Experience a new adventure packed with exciting changes to the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 formula in Future Redeemed. And that last segment there that Nintendo all wrote there that I talked about is what takes Future Redeemed to a level that no other Xenoblade game has been. The quality of life improvements, what they've done with the Beastopedia, Collectopedia, what they've done with the structure and how they put things together to where it's easily digestible, but at the same time incredibly fun with those union combos, with those pairings, with all the different things, and having protagonists from the first and second game like Shulk and Rex with their children as well join the fray creates an emotional experience. Whereas if you've been playing since the beginning with Xenoblade Chronicles, and even if you know or played Xenosaga, this is the most perfect ending that I've seen to a trilogy of games and connecting to a larger series. Best that I've ever seen. And to me, you have the combat, you have the music, you have everything. You put that all together with everything that I already talked about. It's not a 10 out of 10 experience by itself, but it's a 10 out of 10 experience when you put everything together, because no one was able to accomplish what they did, in my opinion. Have you ever played a game that is so influential and is so good, you still remember it all the way to this point decades later? Well, yeah, we talked about a bunch of them, but Chrono Trigger is the epitome of that, and I would say is the inspiration for me even doing this video in the first place. I've always wanted to find ways to talk about Chrono Trigger and videos to do it and discuss it, but this to me felt like the best way, not only to celebrate the best RPGs that I've ever played and some RPGs that you guys would know, but also to talk about the masterpiece to me that is Chrono Trigger, a Super Nintendo game originally that I played, but I also played it on the Nintendo DS and PC. Chrono Trigger takes everything that we love about RPGs, options, quality of life features, abilities, dual text, triple text, magic, writing, everything, set piece, scenarios, graphics at the time. It was cutting edge. It was like a $70 game. Chrono Trigger had it all in the mid-90s. Now, a chance encounter amid the festivities of Guardia's Millennial Fair in Lean Square introduces our young hero, Chrono, to a girl by the name of Marley. Deciding to explore the fair together, the two soon find themselves at an exhibition of the Telepod, the latest invention by Chrono's longtime friend Luca. Marley, fearless and brimming with curiosity, volunteers to assist in the demonstration. An unanticipated malfunction, however, sends her hurling through a rift in the dimensions, taking hold of the girl's pendant. Chrono bravely follows in pursuit, but the world into which he emerges is one of 4 centuries before. Journey to the forgotten past, the distant future, and even to the very end of time. The epic quest to save the planet's future makes history once again. And that summary of what Chrono Trigger is exactly what makes it so great. A time and space faring adventure takes your brain and lets you think about all the possibilities going throughout time traveling. We've seen this done before, but never executed to the degree, to the precision, and to the fun. And that's what this game is about, fun. The prehistoric areas, the old past, the future, Robo, the characters, the mini games, the graphics, the story, the music. Everything is so finely intertwined in that 16-bit cartridge, Everything that you thought that you knew at the time that I played this about RPGs was completely turned around. It was an RPG that to me had so much personality and character with the dancing and the expressions and everything. And really, when you get to the core root of the story and what they did to repurpose the best-selling book of all time just makes you gasp. Like, it takes the air out of you when you finally figure out what happened. It's an emotional journey. It's an incredible journey. To me, it's the greatest game of all time, and it stood the test of time. It's still incredibly playable. It's still incredibly innovative. Still has gameplay that other developers have not done. It's still so relevant to this point. You can pick it up and not miss a beat. The only thing that would be outdated would be the graphics, but for the system that it's on, it still is incredible. The Nintendo DS version also improves it with some monster collection and other enhancements to a game that's already a 10 out of 10. So these are my 10 out of 10 experiences when it comes to JRPGs. I think that this has been an interesting journey, and a journey that I don't think I'll ever stop. Japanese RPGs will always have a special place in my heart, and I hope that I've opened the eyes to other Japanese RPGs that you guys might want to play in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click the notification bell for the latest RPG content on PlayerEssence. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.